Okay, let's dive in. Imagine, just for a second, the world you know. The curtain pulls back.
Right.
And suddenly you can see things that were invisible before. Beings. Jinn, as some traditions call them.
Yeah, unseen entities.
Exactly. And the source we're looking at today, it paints this picture where if that happened, especially for people who aren't prepared, well, it's like opening a playground for these beings to cause harm.
A pretty unsettling thought, really.
It is. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into a YouTube transcript. It's from a channel called the Mohammedan Way Sufi Realities. And it presents this really compelling, sometimes frankly disturbing view on spiritual protection. They call it Madad.
Madad, yeah. Protection against these unseen forces, which they describe as jinn and even vampire demons.
Which is quite a term. So look, maybe these ideas are totally new to you listening, or maybe you've heard bits and pieces and want to understand this particular viewpoint better.
Right. And that's what we're here for, to explore it together.
Our goal today is just to understand the main ideas they're putting forward. What is this Madad? What's the threat they perceive? And what solutions does this specific tradition offer?
Well, what's striking right off the bat is this idea of layers to reality. You know, layers we don't usually perceive.
Yeah.
And within those hidden layers, maybe there are forces that, well, aren't exactly friendly. This transcript gives a specific way to think about that.
And it really emphasizes this specific kind of spiritual support to deal with it all.
Exactly. A way to navigate it.
So let's start there with Madad. What exactly is it, according to this source?
So Madad, the way they explain it, it's basically spiritual support, aid, strengthening.
Like a helping hand, spiritually speaking?
Kind of, yeah. It flows, they say, from a spiritual guide, a sheikh, but the ultimate source is believed to be divine, Allah, channeled through Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Think of it like a spiritual current, maybe. Something that brings you serenity, clarity when you're praying in salah. And helps you focus during zikr, you know, the remembrance of God.
Okay, so it helps with practice.
Yeah.
But is there a deeper goal? It sounds like more than just feeling calm.
Oh, definitely. The big aim from this perspective is to diminish the ego, that sense of I, me, mine that can kind of block a deeper connection.
Right, the self.
Yeah. Madad is seen as this ongoing help to surrender that, to transcend it.
And it's interesting, they mention it's not always felt.
Right. Which seems counterintuitive, but the idea, it seems, is that this fosters a kind of continuous seeking. You don't take it for granted. It makes you rely on maintaining that connection.
Makes sense. Like you have to actively keep reaching for it. Okay, so that's the support system. But then there's the threat side of things, these malevolent jinn. What are they described as?
Well, they use terms like shaitan, satans, and jinn, the unseen ones. They're presented as a real potential danger.
A danger of what, exactly?
The specific concern they highlight is that these beings might, you know, become visible, reveal themselves. And then harm people, especially people who don't have the spiritual protection we were talking about.
And why are ordinary people seen as so vulnerable? What makes them defenseless in this view?
The belief presented is that without that cultivated spiritual bond, specifically the connection to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that they emphasize you just be open, defenseless.
Okay.
And the transcript gets quite graphic, actually. It suggests these beings are drawn to negative human emotions. They feed off adrenaline, fear, yelling, screaming.
Wow, like emotional fuel for them.
That's the idea presented, that these reactions give them some kind of sustenance.
And it goes further, doesn't it? There's some really disturbing claims in there, too.
It does get very dark. The transcript makes this incredibly serious and frankly alarming claim linking missing migrants and children, particularly in Western countries.
To these entities?
Yes. Suggesting they could be victims, abducted, consumed by them.
Okay, well, we absolutely have to stress this is a claim made in this specific YouTube transcript.
Critically important. Yes. This is part of the viewpoint being explored from that source, not something presented as established fact outside of it.
Right. Understood. So, given that perceived threat level, how does Madad work as the defense?
Madad is positioned as the sort of essential shield. The transcript describes someone developed in Madad as being in this state of deep surrender, deep connection.
To the point where?
To the point where they say it's like Allah acting through them. They actually reference Hadith al-Qudsi.
Oh, the famous one?
Yeah, the one where God says, I am the eyes with which he sees, the ears with which he hears. That one.
Right.
They use that to illustrate the kind of divine empowerment they believe is possible through Madad. It's like you become a channel.
So someone with that connection is almost spiritually weaponized in a defensive way.
That's the implication, yeah. That they can not only repel these malevolent jinn, but actually harm them.
And that's the jinn's biggest fear.
That's what the transcript claims, yes. Their greatest fear. They even say one rihal, meaning like a person of spiritual maturity with Madad is stronger than loads of people without it.
Okay. To make this more concrete, they tell a story. This guy in Argentina.
Yes. The Muhammad Argentini anecdote. It's quite a tale. This young man, not Muslim at the time, apparently knew nothing about Sufism, the tariqah.
Okay.
He gets involved with some political group, and he starts seeing the leaders as, well, the transcript uses the term vampires, described as satanic jinn creatures.
Right. And they meant him harm.
That was his perception, yes. He describes being frozen, paralyzed by some force.
Terrifying. What happened then?
He says the faces of two sheikhs, Maulana Shaykh Hisham and Shaykh Nazim, appeared to him.
Just appeared.
Appeared. And instantly, he claims, he started reciting fluent Arabic, a language he didn't know.
Wow.
And he felt this energy, this spiritual power coming from him that actually lifted these beings off the ground.
Lifted them.
Yeah. He felt like confronting them, but then got this inner instruction, like no permission for that. So he released them, apparently, and just got out of the country immediately.
And the story continues after that.
It does. He makes his way eventually to Los Angeles. The transcript says he tried some mosques, described as Wahhabi mosques, and they were skeptical, didn't accept his story.
Okay.
But then he finds the Sufi center connected to the sheikhs he saw, the ones sharing this account, and they validated his experience.
And they present this as a real event.
Yes, absolutely. Not as a metaphor, but as one example of what they see as actual documented realities.
That story really underlines how important the connection to the spiritual guides, the sheikhs, is in this view. They talk about that a lot, don't they?
Oh, hugely. It's central. The transcript is very strong on this. Disrespecting the sheikh is seen as disrespecting the prophet, peace be upon him, and ultimately disrespecting Allah.
Use an analogy, right?
Yeah.
Something about a flute.
Yeah, that's a good one. If you criticize the flute, the instrument, you're missing the point. You're missing the music, the message from the one playing the flute.
Ah, okay. So the sheikh is the instrument.
Or the channel, the portal, a conduit to higher presences. They see the sheikh as a living manifestation of that hadith al-Qudsi we mentioned, God acting through them.
So there's a definite path they recommend for seeking spiritual insight. And they seem to warn against other methods, particularly substances.
Very clearly, yes. There's a strong caution against using alcohol or drugs to try to pierce the veil, to see beyond the ordinary.
Why?
Yeah,
What's the danger, according to them?
They argue that while substances might give you an illusion of seeing more, what you're actually tuning into is often these malevolent entities. And the result isn't enlightenment, it's, madness, homelessness, breakdown. They see it as completely ineffective, even destructive.
And they mention specific substances too.
They do. Ayahuasca, DMT. They specifically warn against seeking experiences through these. They say it doesn't lead to the divine, it leads to the satanic world.
The satanic world.
Yeah, and you risk getting negative entities attached to you. They use this analogy of drug dealers giving free samples.
Oh, like the first hit is free.
Exactly. It seems appealing, maybe even profound at first, but it's a trap leading to spiritual harm and loss of divine protection, in their view.
So if someone is interested in developing this Madad, this protection, the right way, what do they recommend? What are the practices?
The core thing seems to be a daily connection of the heart to the sheikh. That's central.
Okay.
But beyond that, it's about your whole life, really. Good character, doing good deeds, charity, a life of service kidmet, they call it.
So it's not just meditation, it's action too.
Absolutely. They say these are like prerequisites to even enter the circle of Madad. They use another analogy, airport security, like the TSA.
TSA. How does that fit?
Like you need the right qualifications. Your character, your actions, your intentions to get through security and access that spiritual realm. You can't just walk in.
That's a practical way to put it.
Yeah, okay.
Cool. What about helping other people? If you see someone struggling, what's the advice?
The emphasis, interestingly, is very much on save yourself first.
Really?
Yeah. Perfect your own connection, build your own spiritual strength before you try to fix everyone else. The idea is you can't give what you don't have.
Right. Put on your own oxygen mask first.
Exactly, that kind of principle. So practices like meditation, tafakkur are key for developing your own spiritual magnetism, your juzba, and receiving blessings phase.
So this path, Tarika, it's an active thing you do.
Very much so. An active process of giving yourself, refining yourself.
Okay, let's say someone listening finds that this all resonates. They want to share it. What does the transcript say about that?
The advice is basically share it, but don't get bogged down worrying if people get it or accept it.
To put it out there.
Yeah. Focus on the act of service itself, the intention. They tell this little anecdote about handing out flyers for zikr, and people showed up for reasons the person handing out flyers had no idea about. The point being, Allah guides who is meant to receive the message. Your job is just to offer it.
Makes sense. Don't worry about the results. What about inner struggles like hypocrisy? How do they suggest tackling that?
They say prioritize the big stuff, the most dangerous inner conflicts.
Such as?
Specifically, anything inverting, criticizing, or disrespecting Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Maintaining that deep love and respect for the Prophet and for the Sheikh is presented as absolutely crucial. Deal with the biggest spiritual dangers first.
Got it. And one last thing they discussed was ta'weez, these protective prayers.
Yes, ta'weez. They mentioned distributing thousands of these, described as like an honor, a gift from the Prophet's spiritual kingdom.
For what purpose?
Protection. For homes, cars, for yourself. The guidance is essentially use them, trust them, don't question them too much.
And their effects become clear when?
When things get difficult, basically. When things start to fall apart, their protective power will become apparent. They even link it to the day of judgment, suggesting people who oppose these things will feel regret.
Okay. So, wrapping this up then, we've covered quite a bit from this transcript, this idea of Madad, spiritual support.
Right, against this perceived threat from unseen jinn, these malevolent forces.
The absolute importance of connecting with the spiritual guide, the sheikh.
And the warnings against seeking insight through substances versus the recommended path of practice, service, and connection.
And these protective measures like ta'weez.
Exactly. It's a whole framework.
So as a final thought, what really stands out from digging into this source?
I think it's that core assertion within this specific viewpoint, that there are unseen dimensions actively influencing our world, maybe in ways we just don't normally comprehend.
Yeah.
It offers this very distinct way of understanding challenges, both the ones we see and the ones we don't. And it strongly pushes for seeking very specific kinds of protection based on faith and that spiritual connection.
It definitely makes you think, doesn't it? Yeah. About the nature of reality, how different people find meaning, and how they seek safety from the unknown.
It certainly does. It gives you a lot to mull over.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.